Knee is down for the Texans, and the clock will wind to 0 here in the fourth quarter. 26-15 the final score. The Texans with the victory over the 49ers here from NRG Stadium. Houston moving to 3-4 overall. The 49ers fall to a record of 5-3 overall.
Bright and early, the 49ers and the New York Football Giants. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. The Niners and the Giants kicking off at 10 a.m. local time here in the Bay Area. The Niners at 5-3, looking to avenge the loss of last week against the Houston Texans at NRG Stadium. The Giants come in today at 2-6. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. JD, good morning, brother. How are you, man?
One of the slogans for the New York Football Giants, Copes, is Big Blue. There's Big Blue all over, I hear, inside MetLife Stadium, and it just feels too soon. Too much Big Blue, too soon. You waited
90 seconds and 12 words, huh, JD?
Well, it's all I could. Well, I'm sure it's all you've been able to think about the last 12 hours, and it's basically all I've been able to think about the last not even 12 hours, like 9 hours. I don't know what. It's early, but yeah, man, I just too much Big Blue. I think with the Bay Area and everything that went on last night, but should be a fun game. Niners looking to bounce back. The Giants have played better at home than they have on the road,
sure.
And I really think, Copes, this and we'll get into it here for the next couple of hours. I think this truly, it's week 9. It's the midpoint of the season. It was 17 games. So this is literally, the ninth game is literally the midpoint.
But when I do the halftime show, we'll be exactly at midway through the season, right? Now you play 17 now, 8.5 games in, get you right at the midway point. So you're right. We have some real evaluation to do about this team or of this team after this game. Brian Daboll coaching to keep his job effectively. Jackson Dart playing to prove that he's a force to be reckoned with in the NFC East, and that he can be a guy who becomes a franchise quarterback. They've lost their top receiver. They've lost their top running back in Cam Scatterbo. You've got the ageless Devin Singletary back there, who seemingly has played for every red, white, and blue team in the NFL with the Texans, the Giants, and the Buffalo Bills. He's back there now with Tyrone Tracy. You've got a tough defensive line of Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. Brian Burns has got 10 sacks on the year. The 49ers have 9 as a team, JD. By all accounts, when we talk about, we've done it the last couple of weeks, you said if you looked at the 49ers schedule and you looked at the games that were left that were must-haves or should-wins, I think is what you called them, should-win games. If you looked at the rest of the schedule and picked the should-win games, there's not a whole lot of them left. This is one that I look at and I say, despite the injuries, despite the discrepancy in talent here, I think this is a game the 49ers should have, JD.
Well, it's a game they need to have. I don't know that I'd necessarily put it in the category because the Giants, and look, Scatterbo being out I think is huge. Jackson Dart and Scatterbo had really, I thought, brought a lot of swagger to this Giants team, sure. And they pulled off an upset kind of out of nowhere when both of those guys were playing together against the Chargers, and then they were able to beat the Eagles. And it looked like they were really getting on a roll in Denver a couple of weeks ago, and they blew that huge lead in the fourth quarter, and then Scatterbo gets hurt, and all of a sudden the Eagles are running all over them. And so I think they've taken clearly a step back at 2-6 now, and it looks like maybe they're going to be the team for the rest of the year that they were anticipated to be at the beginning of the year. But for the Niners, kind of finishing that original point, this is a need-to-have game, and I really believe, while it is literally the pivot point, I think this is a pivot point game for the Niners and the remainder of their season. If you get this game, you get to 6-3, and I think it sets up some other games within the path of trying to get to 10 wins and get to the playoffs. If you don't get this game, then all of a sudden you're playing the Rams at home, and you might be 5-5. And again, I don't want to go too far down that road on the negative tip, but I think if you win it, you stay separated from 500 enough to where I think the 49ers could ride that at 6-3 coming out of today with a victory all the way to a 10-7, basically by being 500 between now and the end of the year. And I think that at minimum would get them into the playoffs as a 7 seed, and I think that would at minimum consider this season to be a successful one for the 49ers, considering all the circumstances with injuries and the like.
Well, today, Key, and when I talked, and Derek and I talked to Kyle Shanahan on Thursday, he said, we can't wait to get on the field on Sunday, because when you have a game the way the Niners did last week against Houston, you want an elixir. You want to get back out there. You want to wipe that thing away quickly. Last week, JD, was not a game for me where it's like a flush the game type of game. They had 14 plays or something run offensively at halftime. They had a terrible first half, a 16-play drive to open the game for Houston. The Niners basically got their asses kicked, as Kyle said, in all phases of the game. I mean, special teams, I guess, as good as you could have asked for it to be, but no pass rush, no run game. Kyle said it's tough to say that the run game was ineffective. He said we never even got the run game going. We never attempted the run game. 8 carries for Christian McCaffrey in that game, and the lowest yardage total that he's ever had as a San Francisco 49er. What did you see last week as something that do you look at last week, I guess is the way I'd phrase it, as something that's going to be repeatable or likely repeatable, or was that an outlier for how the 49ers can get by in this game?
I think it was somewhat of an outlier, given the fact that the Texans do have a good defense. Now, the Giants have an excellent defensive line.
Agreed.
That's the strength of their team
Yeah.
On that side of the football. And so how do you get the running game going? I mean, you look at it, and I know Kyle Shanahan didn't want to make too much of the ability for the Giants to run for well over 200 yards against them last week, because the first time they played, the Giants did a nice job at MetLife Stadium against the Eagles' rushing attack. But I think there are opportunities for the 49ers to run the ball against the Giants that maybe didn't exist against the Texans. But the Texans took Christian McCaffrey away. So how do you get Christian McCaffrey back into the fold? Does it start with looking to maybe pass the football to set up the run? Do you come out and really look to try to run it immediately? I do think in some ways, though, the Texans, forget about their record. I think that's a team that may prove by the end of the year to be better than what their record was coming into that game. I feel like, and I hate doing this, but we do it all the time, how do losses kind of age? And I still think, some of the familiarity as it relates to DeMeco Ryans and some of the personnel that the Texans deploy, I just think that was kind of a bad matchup for the 49ers offense.
But we're gonna talk to the what we say to the AP or to the coaches poll and look at that as maybe a good loss at some point down the road. You start getting more points for that one, right? Adam Copeland.
Yeah, it doesn't. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
No, it does not in the NFL. They don't care how good it looks down the road, right? Time now for the QB comparison, JD, sponsored by Friedman's Appliance, proudly serving all of Northern California with a wide selection of luxury appliances. Visit them in Pleasant Hill to see the Friedman's difference. And, of course, JD, at 7 a.m., sponsored by Dolce Vita Tequila. Tequila, pure and simple. The QB comparison. Now, the first time since Brock Purdy's been out with the turf toe that he has been listed as questionable while Kyle Shanahan has named Mac Jones the starter. Do you look at this as Brock slotting in or dressing as the backup quarterback today? Is that what a questionable designation paired with a Mac starting designation could mean?
Yeah, I think it does, and I look at it, and I mean, we'll have to see coming up at 8:30 when the things come out. But it seems like that's the case, that maybe you'd want him to be the backup. It was interesting because I get the impression, and I know the 49ers have said to the contrary, but do you really want to bring him back on turf inside MetLife Stadium to be the starter? So it feels like maybe this is an extension of the lead up to his return, sort of a next phase or a next step to him being the starter. But yeah, it does kind of feel, and we'll see coming up in about 90 minutes, as if Brock is going to be the backup quarterback today, and that can be another step toward his eventual return. It also leads to what happens if Mac Jones and the 49ers offense doesn't play well.
Yeah.
Could it be an opportunity for Kyle to basically throw Brock back in the middle of a game? And if that's the case, it also begs the question, I'm interested to get your take on this, well, why wouldn't you just line up the week to have Brock Purdy be the starter in this game if he's going to be capable of being the backup? Another one of these odd kind of what are they doing types of things as it relates to the injuries, and there's been a couple of them here early in the year.
Well, Kyle was sort of asked that, and he had a back and forth. I couldn't tell on the like the presser audio who it was, or if it was Eric Branch on Friday, but he had kind of a back and forth with somebody in the media where they said, well, if Brock plays, could he get injured more? And he's like, well, yeah, of course. If you play, it could get more hurt, or you could hurt it more. This is an injury that could be irritated. It is an injury where you could have a setback, as we've seen. I mean, he started week 4 against Jacksonville. Right? So I think they're being extremely cautious with this. I think they're comfortable with Mac. But I will say, and I said this to you last week, JD, it was the first time that Brock's been out this year where, I mean, I don't know that it makes a big difference in the overall score of last week's game, but who knows because of how poorly they were able to try to find any sort of rhythm or chemistry throughout the game. But it was the first time that I thought to myself, I wonder if Brock Purdy might have been better in this game because of the mobility. We did not see any mobility from Mac Jones, which is something that is not a positive for him or a plus for him. It's a deficiency in his game. I wouldn't knock him for it. I'm just saying I wonder if Brock were able to escape or skirt some of those pressures last week, would they have played a different game? So I'm with you that this looks like, at least with that designation, maybe an opportunity to ease him back or to look like he's coming back. I think also the 49ers look at it and say, we're now in a situation at 5-3 where we do not want to fall to 5-4. You're a half game back of a couple teams in your division. You're playing another NFC opponent here. If, in fact, Mac were to go down, they do not want to have to ride with Adrian Martinez. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to.
That's a great point in a game that you desperately need to win. And I think the 49ers do desperately need to win this game to get to 6-3. Again, I think it takes the pressure off the remaining 8 games after this and really provides a clear-cut path to a minimum. Again, I'm not limiting them at 10 wins, but a minimum of 10 wins. So, yeah, I think you're right. It's a situation where Brock is getting closer, and if you do wind up in sort of that emergency situation where either Mac's not playing well or Mac gets hurt, and we've seen Mac really grind through a lot of injuries through the course of this season and play pretty effectively. But if he doesn't, it's nice to have Brock Purdy, your starter, back in there as your emergency plan. And I'm with you as far as last week goes also. I mean, I think there's been a couple of games. Look, Brock Purdy's got a greater ceiling than Mac Jones because of the mobility, because of the track record and what we've seen him do with the 49ers. I mean, he was a MVP-level candidate throughout the NFL deep into the 2023 year. Brock Purdy is the starting quarterback for a reason, and if the 49ers ultimately are going to get to that goal of making the playoffs and giving themselves a shot in January, it's going to be because Brock Purdy is able to come back and play at a high level and help lead this team through a lot of the injuries that have kind of plagued this entire year.
Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. Niners and the New York Football Giants coming your way 10 a.m. right here on the Sports Leader. We'll take a quick break, but not because Kyle Haar wants us to, JD, because I decided. Not because he said we should, because I decided at my own volition. It's time to take a break. First time this morning here as the Niners and the Giants get going at 10 a.m. Today, right here on the Sports Leader. The Niners, of course, coming in at 5-3. The New York Giants at 2-6 from MetLife Stadium. We'll take a quick break. When we come on back, let's get into who's hot for the 49ers. They'll need somebody to get hot today. Anybody in the receiving corps turning it up? How about a Keon White sack fumble today? How about that? That'll turn you up to something hot on the defensive side of things. We'll get into it next. Who's hot for the 49ers? More to come. 10 a.m. kickoff. Niners and the Giants right here on the Sports Leader.
Sound right, boy. It sound right, boy.
Yeah, I've played against both teams there, but I don't know. I don't really think about it. I think it's turf, and the field's 100 yards long and 53 and a third wide, so I don't really think about it like that, but definitely every playing surface is different, and I learned early in my career you want to get out there early and test your cleats and figure out, do you want to wear this pair or that pair based on the surface, so that's all you can do, and I mean, I played on it multiple times and didn't have any issues, so I think it's a cool stadium, and they got a good fan base.
I was Brock Purdy, 49ers quarterback. They're talking about, or excuse me, that was Mac Jones there, 49ers quarterback, talking about the surface in which you play on at MetLife Stadium, talking about, I guess, the length of cleats there, which cleats feel better there. JD, I mean, you've heard about this for years. I mean, how big of a difference is it playing on this turf? The 49ers have kind of had it's been a house of horrors at times for the Niners. I mean, Nick Bosa went down with a torn knee years ago at MetLife Stadium. Saquon Barkley, like 2 weeks later, had it happen the same season. Just your thoughts on the MetLife turf here. That's become a point of conversation and topic in the last week.
Yeah, going back to 2020, and that was the last time the 49ers played at MetLife Stadium back-to-back weeks to begin that COVID year. Right. with no fans in the stands. They have replaced the turf, so it is different turf. It's not the same turf from 2020 and that much maligned turf. They replaced it in 2023. And so I think it's a little different. It's still, I think, being back in the stadium might for some be something that you don't want to remember, some of the injuries and things that have happened there. But it is a different turf than what the 49ers played on going back to 2020.
Let's talk a bit about who's hot for the 49ers, sponsored by Valley Heating, Cooling, Electrical, and Solar, locally and family-owned for 62 years, and sponsored by Rayleigh's and Nob Hill. Save more on the flavors you love and find better deals for your budget at Rayleigh's and Nob Hill. Why don't we say the stove is hot, JD? Trade deadline week goes down on Tuesday. The 49ers got active this week in both the free agent market and on the trade market. They signed Cleve Ferrell, former first-round was he a fourth overall pick by the Raiders years ago? And he was a 49er just a couple of seasons ago. He went down in the 2023 season, and really that was sort of a linchpin for the 49ers run defense. He was a guy who was setting the edge, and then the whole defense changed seemingly once he went down with an injury. They also traded a 6th and 7th round pick to New England for Keon White, an edge rusher, a former 2nd-round pick. JD, that trade to me immediately had the same sort of framework, a little bit more in that they gave up a 7th. It felt to me like the Charles Omenihu trade from a few years ago. The Niners gave up a 6th round to get Omenihu. He was under contract for the following season. He was a former 1st-round pick, wasn't getting tons of run, had maybe been underutilized and underperformed early in his career. Same sort of thing for Keon White, a 2nd-year player here, 2nd-round pick. They give up 2 picks for him. He's under contract for next season. Has 5 games played already this year, no sacks, but something like 6 career sacks to this point in the last 2 seasons. Is his 3rd year, actually. I said his 2nd. Just your thoughts on this trade, and was this more for this year? Was this a desperation move? I mean, how do you view these moves, JD?
Well, they had to do something. I think you would agree with that. They
Yeah.
had to do something considering all the injuries and lack of depth, and so they improve in terms of adding an edge. They had somebody that can play on the interior a little bit as well. And, yeah, Keon White had 4 sacks, I think, in the early part, the first 4 or 5 weeks of last season. So when the 49ers saw the Patriots at Levi's in September, toward the end of September a year ago in 2024, White was really kind of one of the breakout players of that season for the Patriots. And so I think the 49ers liked him, even going back to kind of prepping for him in that matchup in early 2024. But yeah, it's somebody that underutilized, different regime now with the Patriots, and I think a buy low opportunity, which is very much in line with what we have discussed over the last couple of weeks, that the Niners are looking to not give up a lot, but have players that can come in and as a baseline be more productive than some of the guys that they've had to elevate because of all the injuries. So I think Keon White fits that mold, and I would expect the 49ers to continue to try to be active in a similar manner here between now and the deadline. And there's been a ton of reports as basically the 49ers kind of calling around on everybody.
Yeah, right. Everybody's saying the Niners aren't done yet, which is kind of, a bit of a surprise. We went from will they make a move to now being like, how many more will there be?
No doubt, and I know Trey Hendrickson's the name that's popped up, and
Yeah.
he's been banged up as well. But I think it's probably not. Although again, it continues to be reported with the 49ers linked there. Like what would it take? And if the price comes down enough, is there something that the 49ers would maybe part with that originally you wouldn't have thought that they would? But yeah, a lot of reports that the 49ers are not done scouring the market, and I think it's good. I think it is going to be more so deals that they're looking for. Last minute, teams always set a price for what they want, but then last minute, if you're really looking to get rid of a guy that doesn't fit into your future plans, a lot of time the price comes down. So I could see the Niners being really active right up until the deadline, right up until the minute, basically, of the trade deadline, if they can get what they consider to be a value. And it was interesting. I mean, the reports at looking at corners and linebackers and even defensive linemen as well, which is something that we asked Maiocco last week about it on this show, and he said he didn't really think that they were looking at anything more than edge, although edge was the first area, obviously, that they attempted to address. So I think it's a good sign, and I think it's a good statement, and really a statement that you almost have to have to the guys in the locker room, considering the fact that they've gotten to this point where it's 5-3. They have a winnable game, although not going to be an easy game today, and still very much, considering all the adversity, have a shot to make the playoffs.
I was going to ask you about that, JD, because I was saying that to Derek this week, that you hear coaches all the time, like when teams make a deep playoff run or when teams, win a championship, you hear oftentimes at the end of the season a coach say, or a GM say something like, we knew this team was special. We knew after that win back in July that this was a team that could do something special. We knew after we beat the New York Giants in week 9 that this was a team that could go all the way. My point here is when you get to when you have a team that's successful, and you have a deadline, and teams go out and they make purchases, and they go out and they buy. Like, you think back to the Emmanuel Sanders trade that John Lynch made in 2019. You think back to Chase Young even in 2023. They knew they had deficiencies, but those trades told you what they thought of those teams. That John Lynch made a move saying, hey, we're one piece shy. We're a couple of pieces short of being a team that could go win it all. And sure enough, those two teams went to the Super Bowl, ultimately didn't get the job done, but that's why you buy at the deadline. I'm wondering now, if you were to go into the future and look back at these two moves, like not Cleve Farrell per se. I mean, he's a guy they definitely needed in terms of depth and they were familiar with. But Keon White, the type of piece that Matt Maiocco told us they'd be looking for if they had a controllable piece for next season as well. What do you think these moves or that Keon White trade tells you about how John Lynch sees this team right now?
I think it tells you that they believe they can get into the playoffs. Again, it's not a blockbuster type move, and maybe that move is still to come. I think, given our conversations the last couple of weeks, I would say more likely not a blockbuster move, more likely another Keon White, Cleveland Farrell, those type of moves. Maybe an Arden Key winds up back in the mix. His name continues to pop up, but it's those lesser moves where you don't necessarily have to give up a ton that I think show that this team's got a shot to get in, while maybe it's that in-between ground. Maybe not a Super Bowl contender given all the injuries and who's not coming back in Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, but definitely a team that's good enough to look to add to on the fringes in an attempt to get into the playoffs and make it a successful season, because we just haven't seen the 49ers. I think you made this point last week. There's been no in-between. It's either go to the Super Bowl, go to the NFC Championship game, feel completely like they're a contender, or it's been bad season, 6 wins, and where's the draft pick, and on to the next, file it away. Well, this year already, I think, unless it completely careens, which I don't foresee because of the schedule, this is going to be the first true, I think, in-between kind of a year where the Niners are not necessarily a Super Bowl or even an NFC Championship contender, but still are a good team and can be a playoff team. And I think there's a value, especially considering the 49ers coming into this year with a little bit of that Rams or Bills type of mentality of trying to retool the roster on the fly while remaining competitive. So I think checking that box is not insignificant, Copes.
No, I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. And it's right that there has been no gradual rise to any of the 49ers' success. It's been sort of burst onto the scene, make the run, and that's kind of been it. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you on a Sunday morning. The 49ers and the New York Giants get going at 10 a.m. We'll be with you till about 9 before we hand it over to the broadcast team today. Let's take a quick break. When we come on back, we will talk to our guy, Matt Maiocco, 49ers insider from NBC Sports Bay Area. We'll see what he thinks about the move for Keion White and what he's hearing on the trade front and the injury front for the 49ers today. Is Brock Purdy back next week after one more game out today? He's listed as questionable. We'll also ask Matt if he thinks Brock will serve as today's backup. Matt Maiocco from NBC Sports Bay Area joins us next. Niners and the Giants, 10 a.m. only here on The Sports Leader.
Similar in the fact they have an elite defensive line, as good as there is, just from the five rushers that they get on the field at the same time, and the depth they have behind them. They got some, young rookie who plays well, who's hasn't been active for all the games just because of how good they are. But they're starters, rookies, they're veterans. Lawrence has been there forever, so as good as it gets from a pass rush standpoint.
49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan talking about the D-line and the defense of the New York Giants, who the 49ers face today. The Niners come in at 5-3, the Giants at 2-6 as Week 9 is upon us. Here to talk about this one, our 49ers insider from NBC Sports Bay Area, Matt Maiocco, joins us on the UMA Guest. What's going on, Matt? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
I'm doing well, man. So what did you make of the trades this week? Keion White acquired from trades. It's one trade and one signing. Keion White acquired from New England for a 6th and 7th rounder. I was asking JD, what does this trade say about how the Niners view this team right now?
Well, I mean, clearly they have a depth issue on the defensive line, and Keon White, just wasn't working out under his third different regime there with the Patriots. And I think he's a guy that they like. They like these kinds of players who have the size, have the versatility to play inside and outside. And, I think this is almost exactly what we thought the 49ers would be looking to do, which would, not give up a whole lot in draft picks. You mentioned they get Keon White and a 7th-round pick in exchange for a 6th-round pick. So from that standpoint, they still have the same number of picks before this trade as they have after the trade. And then they get a player that they not only have for the rest of this season, but for next year as well. So I didn't think, and it just, in my mind, doesn't make any sense for the 49ers to load up and do something that only can improve the team through the rest of this year. They need to make a move that also impacts 2026. And so that kind of threads that needle of being exactly what the team wants. And, is Keon White going to come in and dominate and be, a superstar? Probably not, but they just need more guys. They need more depth, and I think he's the kind of guy that does have potential to be far more productive than he was with the Patriots.
Well, and Matt, it also sounds like, at least if you're following the league and the rumor mill, and I know you are, and talking to your own sources and the like, it also doesn't seem like the 49ers are necessarily done as we inch closer here to Tuesday. What's your sense for just the willingness to continue to do more, even if it isn't maybe a blockbuster or headliner type of a move?
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely the case. And, the fact that they went out and, Cleveland Ferrell wasn't on a team. He had been on the Chargers practice squad, elevated for one game, and then they released him from their practice squad. So he was kind of sitting out there, and the 49ers depth situation is such that they went out and they signed him, and now 4 days later he's going to be in uniform and playing today. So that gives you an idea right there about the depth or lack thereof for the 49ers. And then, they're going to lose Yetur Gross-Matos for at least a month. He aggravated a hamstring injury in practice on Thursday. They do expect Bryce Huff to be back this next week. But no, I think that any move they make will be similar to the Keon White trade, in that they won't be giving up a whole lot as far as draft picks go. It will be a move that probably doesn't impact their salary cap all that much for the future, and that's the key, is that it's not a move just for the rest of this season. It'll have to be something that can pay dividends here in 2026, and I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that they could acquire a player who's under contract for a couple more years, but if that were to become available, that would be ideal as well.
Matt, on Friday, Mac Jones was named the starter for today's game, but Kyle Shanahan listed Brock Purdy as questionable. What does that tell you about how he'll be used today? Will he be, you think, dressed as the backup today? And does that indicate that he could be back, or do you think it's trending for him to be back next week, week 10?
Yes. I mean, it sounds like he is going to be active and be the number 2 guy with Adrian Martinez as the emergency number 3. So they'll have 3 quarterbacks theoretically suited up. This is all contingent on Brock giving the green light to that. They MRIs and imaging and all this stuff can only tell you so much. They have to kind of base it on how the player feels. And I know Brock Purdy was feeling very good as the week went on. And I know, the next question would be, and the question I have is, okay, well, if he's good enough to be the backup, which means that you have to think that there's always a possibility he could be the quarterback on the second play of the game and play the rest of the game. So if he's good enough to be the backup, why isn't he good enough to start? And the answer to that is because Mac Jones was the quarterback they were getting ready through the entire week. So not necessarily that the game plan changes or anything of that nature, but he's the guy who took the practice reps. He's the guy who, stood in the pocket against, the scout team and made the reads. And the game plan more or less tailored to him. So he's in the best position to succeed in this game with Purdy, with limited reps this week, being there as the backup, and then the plan would be starting next week, fully have Brock Purdy entrenched as the starter and moving forward into that Week 10 game against the Rams.
All right, so Matt, looking more into this one, I mean, give us kind of a key for what the 49ers have to do to get the run game back going. The Texans really took them away. Christian McCaffrey took him away, and the 49ers really just didn't have anything offensively until almost halftime. Kind of had their way, did the Texans. What are the keys against a really good defensive line for the Giants, but they showed they can be vulnerable to the run against Philadelphia last week?
Yeah, it's kind of been up and down, mostly down, I think, for the Giants' run game. 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, they played the Eagles really tough on that Thursday night game and held them to under 4 yards per carry, and the run defense looked good and just everything was clicking for them. And then last week, it was just abysmal. They gave up 270 yards rushing, 8.7 a carry to the same team. So, the 49ers are, they know that the yards on the ground aren't going to come easy, because if you're coming off a game like that where the Giants gave up so many yards on the ground, what their emphasis is this week, especially facing the 49ers. So 49ers are going to have to mix it up. They're going to have to throw some on first down just to kind of take the heat off of that pass rush where, if they're able to pin their ears back with 5 really good rushers that they can put on the field at the same time, 49ers are in third and long. It's going to be a long day for Mac Jones. So they have to be able to mix it up, maybe do some passing on first down, on non-passing downs, and then ultimately hit them with the run game as well. But, yeah, they got to get the run game going. They got to convert third down, stay on the field, be consistent with the run game. And then on the other side, the defense has to do its part, giving the ball back to the offense. That was something that they just weren't able to do last week, and you saw the time of possession was really skewed toward the Houston Texans, the 49ers offense. It seemed like they went about 10 or 15 minutes between offensive series, and so they just weren't able to get any rhythm going. That was a really bad game, really disappointing. When I talked to Shanahan during the week on Thursday, he said he still felt sick about how poorly they played. So I know the coaching staff challenged the players, they challenged themselves, and we'll see what this team is made of today.
Our 49ers insider, Matt Maiocco from NBC Sports Bay Area, joins us. I think everybody's kind of past the point of concern about Ricky Pearsall. I mean, what does his lack of activity tell you about where he is now? Is there a reason for concern based on how long he's been out? I know people think he should have gone on IR, but you still need to go with inactive players each and every week, and that's kind of where they are now, and only so many spots to designate to return. But where are we with Ricky Pearsall? I mean, is he getting closer?
It appears that is the case. I mean, I hadn't seen him on the field, doing PT for weeks, and this last week saw him running and cutting and doing some things. So, the posterior cruciate ligament is a non-surgical ligament. So, there's a tear there, and, it heals on its own. And obviously everybody kind of heals a little bit differently. So the hope was that he'd be able to be back after a couple weeks. But, he himself said it is after that Jacksonville game that he did not feel stability in that knee. And so that was kind of the first indicator that, he might be out for a while. Well, the ligament is tightening up. It looks like he's getting closer. And I would not rule out that he would return to practice this coming week and be available for Week 10 against the Rams. But it does look like there's pretty noticeable improvements in his physical condition. Now it's just a matter of, he's missed a lot of time. Now it's a matter of just getting back up to speed and feeling confident with that knee and the cutting and the running. And then the coaching staff feeling confident in putting him back out there.
Matt, what's your sense for what the plan is today for both Spencer Burford, who was activated from IR, and also Nick Zakelj, who was elevated or activated from the practice squad, elevated yesterday?
Yeah, I think both of those guys will be in uniform. I think they will both be backups and probably won't play in the planned out structure of the game. Burford, after he blew that assignment in the Super Bowl against Chris Jones and just failing to block the guy that was lined up over him and doing something kind of inexplicable, that was pretty much the end of his run at right guard, and they moved him to be the swing tackle. And so that's how I understand that he will be used today, as a swing tackle, the backup left tackle, backup right tackle. And then Zakelj, a couple of weeks ago, the idea was to start rotating him in and getting him some snaps at left guard along with Connor Colby. And then when Brendel went out with the injury, now he's also the backup center. So, as much as they probably wanted to use him, maybe a 50-50 split at left guard, I think because of he would be the only backup really to Matt Hennessy. He might just be, he would either probably get limited snaps at left guard or maybe none at all. So two guys who are right now kind of, I think, slotted in as backups, with Zakelj having a better opportunity to get on the field than Burford.
Matt Maiocco, the voice you hear, our 49ers insider from NBC Sports Bay Area. Make sure you're reading him, listening to him, watching him, and listening to the Sports Leader, where you can hear Matt all week long. Matt, as always, thank you for the time. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, gentlemen. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon. Enjoy the game.
Appreciate you, Matt. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you at 10 a.m. kickoff, Week 9 for the 49ers and the New York Giants. Let's get to the health report for the 49ers, sponsored by your California Ford dealers. Visit buyfordnow.com to find your next truck or SUV. Here's where we are on the injury report for the Niners today. And we will, by the way, about 90 minutes before kickoff, in just under an hour, we'll get to the actives and inactives for today's game. Ben Bartch is questionable for today's game, as well as Spencer Burford, who Matt just told you is likely to be in uniform today and serving as the swing tackle. Jordan Elliott questionable today, as well as Sam Okenyanu, who they lost last week. Need him for a pass rush. Brock Purdy and D. Winters, anticipating, as Matt said, that Brock will serve as your backup today. Any surprises there, JD?
Yeah, no surprises. And Jordan Elliott was upgraded as somebody with personal reasons that will be available to
good
play.
News.
They made that announcement yesterday after he had missed practice to tend to a personal matter and didn't fly with the team to New York on Friday. But he is expected to be on hand and available to play in this one. Jake
Brendel ruled out for today's game. Yetur Gross-Matos also out as he started working his way back with the hamstring and the knee to practice this week. Bryce Huff ruled out, but correct me if I'm wrong, JD, did Robert Saleh say they're anticipating he'll return for Week 10 against the Rams?
Yeah, it sounds like he's got a shot there, which is good. They need him, especially considering the lack of depth at the position. And I think not having him for a couple of weeks is a big part of the reason why the 49ers were so active in the trade market and going to look to get Keion White.
And then also, as I mentioned before, Ricky Pearsall ruled out for today's game. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come on back, we will build the game plan. Get you ready for the Niners and the New York Giants. 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan joins myself and Derek Papa on Dirty Work every week on Thursday afternoons throughout the football season, and we'll play that for you next. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson, Week 10, the Niners and the Giants, 10 a.m. kickoff. It's coming your way only here on the Sports Leader. The 49ers and the New York Giants, Week 9. We'll have it all for you right here on the Sports Leader, a 10 a.m. kickoff right here on KNBR. It's time now for Building the Game Plan, sponsored by Golden State. When you succeed, we succeed. Visit us today at goldenstatelumber.com and by River Islands. Come home to River Islands in Lathrop and discover the San Joaquin River lifestyle with its lakes, parks, and schools. Start your tour today at riverislands.com. 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan joins myself and Derek Papa each and every week of the football season. He does so on Thursdays on Dirty Work. And I started by asking Kyle about last week's loss and how you bounce back for Week 9.
It's been good. Anytime you have a bad game like that, it's all you want to do is get back out on the field. So it's been nice to get back out these 2 days, having 2 good practices. Got one more, but honestly, just need to get to Sunday so we can get that game out of our taste right now.
So you guys traded for Keion White. You talked about his versatility yesterday, playing on the edge and inside. And I'm always curious about how trades come about. So did New England reach out knowing you like Keion, like from a previous press conference from last year? Or, do you and John see he's not getting playing time and then ask if you're willing, if the Patriots are willing to let him go?
I don't know exactly how this one came out, so
okay.
That'd probably be better for John. But, I have probably a good assumption to where, John and, our whole personnel department and all 32 in the league, those guys talk all the time. And they're always – it's probably why I would struggle to do it, because they're all talking for a while but feeling each other out but not trying to say anything over the course of months till it leads up to deadlines. So you kind of got an idea who's available, but no one wants to act like they're available because everyone wants to act like they really want guys. So you never totally know. And the time once it gets closer to the trade deadline, then it starts to get a little bit more realistic. So I doubt it was something that they were offering to us or we were just hunting up. It's just more relationships with certain guys, and eventually you know who's available, and they also see injuries and stuff on your roster, so they'll start to ask questions like that, and one thing leads to another, and usually the closer it gets to a trade deadline, usually people start to finally figure it out.
What is your role, though, when a trade like that, for a defensive player, I guess specifically, goes down? Do you run and look at tape of him from last year against you guys? I know you commented on Keion's play against you guys last year. Do you look at tape from this year? Is it more on the defensive side? What's your role when a trade for a defensive player goes down?
Same as it would be offense. So there's no difference in that aspect, but it all depends on the time. That came up in one morning, and we were going to do it in the next few hours. I'm in the middle of game plan and doing stuff. So usually it's more John will come down and be like, hey, we got this guy available. It's going to take this. And usually my first question is, how does that affect us next year?
Yeah.
What does that mean from a draft standpoint? What does it mean from a cap standpoint? And when he says it's not that bad, it shouldn't hurt us too much, then I'm usually like, all right, well, what's your guys' evaluation of all these guys? And then he'll tell me what he thinks. He'll tell me what everybody upstairs thinks. And then depending on the position, I'll ask him if he's talked to our position coach. I'll ask him if he's talked to Saleh. And then when it's someone I played against, and I got an idea and we see what the risk reward is on what we're giving up, it moves pretty fast, and then we all sign off on it.
Talking to Kyle Shanahan on the Yuma guest line. Keon White acquired a couple of days ago from New England. Is edge rusher, like, where does that rank in terms of plug-and-play ability? Like, I know you guys got him early in the week, and you get him in and get him out on the field and in sync with everybody. I mean, I know there's offense, there's the playbook. I remember the Christian McCaffrey situation where you had to get the physical done and try to get him up to speed, and he played 22 snaps or something that first week. But is edge rusher like a spot you can just plug and play this week?
Yeah, I would say edge rusher. I'm trying to think about this, so make sure I'm not wrong, but I would say edge rusher is probably right behind kicker and long snapper and punter.
Yeah, okay.
And plug and play. I'm not trying to downplay it. There's definitely a lot of things that go into it, but in terms of lining up over a tackle or a guard, depending on what the front is, and going to get the quarterback in passing situations, that's usually about as simple as it gets in terms of just scheme. But there is more things that go into it, stunts, blitzes, and stuff. When you got to peel on a back, different fronts you got to line up, and just terminology, that stuff is tough to soak in. So you got to be aware of what the guy does know and what he can do, but it usually is easier if it comes to third down and stuff and getting the quarterback.
Talking to head coach of the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, on the Yuma guest line. George Kittle was on our morning show this week saying that the Tunges touchdown was supposed to go to him, but he didn't mind because it was a fellow touchdown or a fellow tight end. What was your reaction to that play?
It was all within. It was a bunch of reactions in under a second, so it was an emotional second for me because I saw Kittle open and I saw Mac throw it and I saw Tonjes reach his arms back, and I was livid at first because I knew it was going to Kittle, and I thought there was no way he could catch it. And then once he did catch it and it was a touchdown, then I don't give a damn. I could care less as long as I don't care how we score 6 points. So then I was ecstatic and completely moved on with my life. But I thought it was actually a hell of a catch or a hell of an interception or however you want to say it. Because when that ball left, I didn't think he had a chance to catch it. I could see him reaching for it, so I thought he was just going to tip it and make it an incompletion. But once he caught it, I was pumped, and then I looked at George in the back of the end zone because I knew he was open, and then I saw George celebrating right away, and I kind of messed with him too. I said, would you have reacted as quickly if that was a different position? Because I know you have a little bit more love for the tight ends on your guys' day or whatever it was. So it ended up working out. George was happy for him, and I was just happy we got a touchdown.
Yeah, staying on tight ends, Jake saw a lot of productivity while Kittle was out. You already you used quite a bit of a 2 tight end system, but are you hoping to use both of them more in the passing game in the upcoming weeks?
Yeah, it all depends on the situation, because we got, when it comes to our non-receivers, all our guys are pretty good at catching it. So then you add it into blocking. I mean, and I'm talking about Christian, obviously, but I'm talking about Juice, who, he's called a fullback, but fullbacks and tight ends are used very similar. Mm-hmm. And then you got Jake, who can't come on strong. And then you got Luke, who, he's got a couple of touchdowns this year. And I believe Luke's one of the best blockers in the league, also. So, it's nice to have some depth there. It's always been Kittle, who is our elite pass game guy and elite blocker. But it's pretty cool that behind him we got a guy who I kind of consider an elite blocker in Luke, and we got a guy in Jake who, if Kittle went down and is missing it in any of his game plan stuff that you would think in the past only Kittle could do. Usually when Kittle's gone down, we've had to change our whole game plan. And with what Jake's done, if Kittle goes down, I've got no problem with Jake going in there. I mean, he stepped it up while he was gone and shown that he can make those plays also.
We asked you last week after the Atlanta game, Christian had a huge running performance, your best run game of the year. And then last week, obviously, it was a much different style of game, and you didn't get the run game going. I think last week you told me you thought it was great offensive line play. It wasn't as simple as just Kittle being back out there. What did you see last week against Houston that can be rectified this week against the Giants in terms of getting the run game going?
Well, I think it's hard to get a run game going when you only have 8 runs in a game.
Sure.
I think we had 14 plays, with 2 minutes to go in the first half. And, our first drive of the year, I think we had 16 plays on one drive. And if you actually look at some of our runs in that game, we have our analytics do everything. It was our most yards before contact this year on runs. Now, that happens when you have 8 runs and 3 of them are draws, and 2 of them are gap schemes on 1st and 10 that get you to 2nd and 3. But that's about it after that. It was kind of an unusual game. I think that's why when you look at it, it's the first time since like 1960 or something, some of those stats have happened. And when a team controls the ball like that, it is tough. I feel like I've been in one game like that before, and it was actually last year when we went to Green Bay and played, when I think at halftime we had 9 plays, and you just kind of sit there and you're like, man, we haven't even got going yet. So I don't want to sit here and we didn't play good enough on offense by any means. We needed to get things going, especially the way they controlled the ball, and we didn't. But to sit there and I think it'd be a little unfair to say that we didn't get the run game going. We didn't attempt the run game. So hopefully we'll be able to play better all around, move the chains on 3rd down. If you don't move the chains on 3rd down, you're never going to get that run game going. But for us to be successful, for us to get the points we need to win, we're going to have to do better on 3rd down and stay out there longer so we can get that run game going just like we did versus Atlanta.
With the Texans possessing the ball as much as they did, how quickly do you as a play caller kind of change your game plan that you had going into the game?
It's hard. I try not to, but there comes a certain time where you have to. In this game, I didn't have to too much until it was out of 2 scores, but that was until there was like 6 minutes left to go, because it was looking bad. They had, I think with 2 minutes, they had the ball for 24 minutes and we had it for 4. They had 14 first downs, we had 0. And they had 300 yards of offense and we had 24 yards of offense. Yet it was only 16-0. And so it was still a 2-score game. So I hadn't really had to change anything yet. We were just getting our 3rd drive of the game. And when we did, we went down and we scored at the end of the 2nd quarter, which made it 16-7. And then we were starting with the ball in the 3rd quarter. So I thought we had a chance, despite all of that, to make it a 2-point game about 12 minutes into the 3rd quarter. Unfortunately, we went out there on 2nd and 3, we had a lost run, and then we got sacked on 3rd down, so we went 3 and out, and then they went 95 yards and took it right back to 2 scores. However, we answered, made it right to 8, and then there was 8 with about 7 minutes to go, and then that's when it changed, and it went to 2 scores. So I'd say really, about 8 minutes to go, we went to more 2-minute drill, more drop back passing, and didn't get a chance to even run the ball or anything. So in that game, it took a while to change.
Talking to head coach of the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, on the Uma guest line. As you said, you guys had trouble getting C.J. Stroud last week. So how do you see the assignment this week of applying pressure to a mobile rookie in Jackson Dart? I
think that's a huge challenge this week, and just in terms of, I thought we made it a little bit too easy on C.J. last week in terms of, we blitzed him, but his hot routes were always open. So we didn't have to really make him work too much. It's great to blitz and get after a guy, but if they just can run a slant and he's not covered and you can get a 1st down on 3rd and 10 that way, you're kind of making it easier by blitzing him. And I thought we struggled with that. That's why I thought we couldn't get off the field, and they were able to do so well on 3rd down and hold on to that ball like they did. Jackson, we're going to have to do it a number of ways. But in terms of blitzing him, we'll have to do that at times. He's shown he can get rid of it. But what this guy's done different is how much off schedules he's had. Since he's taken over, they got more off schedule plays than anyone in the NFL. A lot of explosives doing it. You hope to limit some of those. He's going to have his moments where he buys some time and gets some off schedule ones. You got to keep him out of the end zone and find a way to get off on 3rd down. But we got to be much better than we were last week, not just in blitzing, but also playing coverage. And, we're pretty disappointed about last week. So we're real excited to get to Sunday, get back out there again and kind of change what we did last week.
Just a thought. I want to hear a thought process from you on some returning players. John Lynch, as I said, was on our morning show today, and he was asked about Ricky, and he said he's doing work on the side field still. The PCL's been a problem, obviously, around the NFL, and he's trying to work his way back. But he said, I don't know if we'll get him up to speed to be out there this week. I just wonder always, when a guy's been out for as long as he has, what's your philosophy on having him? Would you like to see practices strung together? Or is he a guy that, if he's up to it by the time you get to Sunday, you could give him a go? How do you work a guy back in, maybe specific to Ricky, but also in general? Are there guys who you would not have practice but then play if they're up to the task Sunday?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, just like player injury situation, it's all different. But when a guy's missed a month or 3 games in a row, then it's never a consideration where he can go on Sunday. I mean, if a guy's missed that long, he's got to get back into practice and give himself and everyone else the confidence that he's okay and can be good by Sunday. Now, if a guy's been playing and stuff and he just got hurt in Sunday's practice and he wasn't good and he wasn't healthy enough to go on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, then there's a decision to be made. What's this guy's history? Has he done this before? When he says he's going to be good to go on Sunday, is he going to be good to go? Is he going to be able to last in the game? Do the doctors say he won't re-injure it? And is he a guy that can go on a Sunday without 3 days of practice? But anytime it's been a guy who's been missing a week or multiple weeks, if they don't get the practice in, then it's not an option to play him.
Last one for you, Coach. I know you're focused on the football team right now, but the Giants introduced their manager today. Tony Vitello was his introductory press conference, and you had yours 8 years ago. What do you remember most of that day? And if there's one piece of advice you give yourself from back then, what would it be?
From my press conference day?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, mine would have been to maybe eat something, go to a tanning booth, try to make myself look more presentable. That when I look at pictures from that day, I kind of laugh. That I had just lost a devastating Super Bowl 2 days before.
Right, yeah.
I hadn't slept in, I feel like, a week. We had just finished a long playoff run. I woke up on the East Coast. I didn't sleep all night, but we left on the East Coast at 7 a.m., landed here. I shaved and put on a suit on the airplane, came out, went straight to a press conference, and then got bombarded with Super Bowl questions and being a head coach of a new franchise. And I actually can't believe I survived that day. But when I look back at it, it was a lot. My wife always talks about it. She thought I was going to pass out on stage, and she couldn't believe I pulled it off. But those were a little different circumstances.
Yeah.
I would say if you aren't coming off all that, I bet he really enjoyed it. I bet it was a special time, and going from college at Tennessee and coming all the way out here, I bet it's a different deal. But it sounds, I don't know a lot about the story, but it sounds like a cool story, and I'm pumped he's out here, and I'm excited to see what he does with the Giants.
It's unique, should be fun to watch. And I'm looking at a photo right now, dude. You don't even look too tired. You look sharp, man. Suits pressed, the pinstripes. You look good, dude. Hair slicked back. It's all good, Coach.
I appreciate it. I tried.
All right, man. Well, good luck. Safe trip out to New York, man. And we'll talk to you next week. Good luck on Sunday, Kyle.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, guys. Thanks. Talk to you later.
Week 9, Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. The Niners and the New York Giants coming your way in just under 2 hours right here on the Sports Leader. A 10 a.m. kickoff as the Niners look to bounce back after a terrible loss last week at the hands of the Houston Texans. Joining us now, getting you ready for the Niners and the Giants, it's our guy Larry Krueger. You hear him nightly on Niners Nightly right here on the Sports Leader from 6 to 7, as well as the Krug Show in pre- and post-game coverage. Krug, at halftime today, we're halfway done with the season, man. How about that?
Wow. Man, it just goes by so fast, doesn't it?
It's quick, man. It's a quick run, dude. I know it's a marathon, but week by week by week, this thing just sort of gets peeled away. How are you feeling about the trades that went down this week, or the trade that went down this week for Keion White? We talked to you about it on Dirty Work earlier this week, and I know you've been analyzing it on the Niners Nightly and on the Krug Show and your podcast. But what does this trade tell you about how they feel about the Niners right now?
Well, I mean, they had to have help. You know, they really probably need a couple guys up front, and they had to get help. And this is a guy that was sitting in New England, and it just didn't. He's not a scheme fit for a 3-4 defense, but he is a scheme fit for a 4-3 defense. And people say, well, why is that? Well, it's just because he's not a two-gapper. He's not like a big. He's a one-gap penetrator. So, you know, New England uses three down linemen who are two-gappers and two outside linebackers who drop into coverage from time to time. You're not going to drop Keion White into coverage, and he's not a two-gapper. So he just doesn't fit there, but he does fit here. And I expect he's going to play pretty well, to be honest.
Krug, as you look at this game, 49ers got off to a really slow start in Houston. It set them back for the entire morning and on into the afternoon. How do you think the Niners look to avoid getting off to a slow start against this Giants team that's been better at home than they've been on the road, but also a team that looks like maybe they're back to, with the loss of Scadaboo, being the team that we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year, as opposed to the team that they kind of turned into about a month or so ago?
Well, I think you got to run the ball. I mean, you got to be efficient. You got to stay on the field. I mean, the last thing this 49er team can do is do what they did last week. They cannot lose the time of possession battle decisively. I mean, they just don't have the defensive personnel to stand up in a situation like that. They have to play complementary football. The good news is the Giants are giving up 5.7 yards per carry this year, and they're even worse if you look at the outside zone. They're giving up 6.7 yards per carry on the outside zone. So, I mean, run the ball. Run the ball, dominate the clock, protect your defense, and get out of there with a 28-10 victory. I mean, you know, this is the Giants don't defend the wide receiver. They don't defend the run. You know, I think there's a lot of opportunity for the 49ers offense, but they have to not turn it over, and they got to run it.
Talking to Larry Krueger here, getting ready for the Niners and the New York Giants. Do you think they'll be able to stop the run of the Giants? I mean, no Cam Scadaboo today. It wasn't a huge run game last week, per se, for Houston. They've done a decent job of with the run defense to this point this season. Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary, it's not their frontline guys. I mean, the D-line for the Niners, you think this is an okay matchup?
Well, I mean, this is it right here. I mean, this is, I did a whole preview video on this, and this was the first question. Can the Niners stop the New York running game?
Yeah.
The Niners defense has allowed opposing lead backs to post at least 100 scrimmage yards and or a touchdown in 6 of the last 7 games. So Tyrone Tracy's not Scadaboo. He's a receiver. He was a receiver in college. But, this is absolutely – I mean, the Niners could not stop Woody Marks. They couldn't stop, banged-up Nick Chubb, who's at the end of his career. I mean, the 49ers are going to have to be quite a bit better against the run. If they can't stop the run, it could be a long day.
Well, and you look at it too, Krug. I mean, the Giants will do with Jackson Dart the RPO game, and that's been something that's been successful for them. Dart will be involved in the run game himself. We've seen the Niners struggle with those mobile quarterbacks. He also makes plays on the move, and he can get flushed out and make throws down the field to burn teams for chunk yards. I mean, combating him is going to be maybe a little easier without Scadaboo, but he is the type of quarterback, albeit inexperienced, that has given the 49ers defense historically fits.
Yeah, I mean, JD, you're totally right. I mean, he's a guy who's, he's being hailed as this great young quarterback. In reality, he's very flawed. But he's given this Giants team a lift because they haven't had the answer at quarterback, and he's got a good arm. He's very athletic. But what he doesn't do is he doesn't see the field. And so what happens is he drops back to pass. He does a quick survey of what he sees. And if he doesn't have his first or second read, ready, he takes off and runs. So the Niners have to be ready to, and Shanahan was asked this week, or maybe Saleh was asked this week, are you going to spy Jackson Dart? And Saleh did everything but answer that question. But I think there's a very good chance they do.
Krug, do you think they're done on the trade market?
No, I don't. I think there's enough teams out there. I think the Niners' needs on defense are severe. I think they could use 2 or 3 different players, and I think they'll find something out there. I don't know if they're going to find exactly what they need, but when I look around at the trade market and I see teams like the Jets and the Titans and the Bengals that don't just have one player that could help the Niners, but really 2 or 3 or 4 players that could help the Niners, I kind of think this is the year the Niners go for volume, but they're not moving that number 1 pick. So if it comes down to, the 2026 first-round pick or no deal, there'll be no deal because they're not going to trade that pick. I think Lynch has made that clear. But I do think from all the reporting that's out there, the Niners are talking about front 7 pieces, D tackles, DNs. The one guy that I'd be super intrigued by is Tavondre Sweat from Tennessee, because I really think he's an impactful defensive tackle who's got a lot of youth and talent, and if they want to move him, man, that would be great. The Cincinnati move would be intriguing that Diana Rossini was talking about. Cam Taylor-Britt, the Niners wanted him in the 22 draft. Cincinnati traded in front, and the Niners were forced to go with Drake Jackson. But now Cam Taylor-Britt has fallen out of favor in Cincinnati, and so has Logan Wilson. And if you could get those 2 guys with a guy like Hendrickson, maybe the Niners would move a day 2 pick or some combination of day 2 picks if they could get multiple players.
What do you think is the biggest name player that they can get? And maybe you just named him, so I didn't mean to kind of come back at you with what you just said. But what's the best player you think that's on the board that's realistically attainable for the 49ers?
It's hard to say if Hendrickson's available. Is Hendrickson available?
Yeah, I tend to think he's not.
Yeah,
I kind of throw
you.
him out when I ask. When I ask that, I'm not thinking of him, although I think he would be an obvious answer. So let's take him out, Krug.
Okay. I mean, is Quinnen Williams available? I mean, to me, the Bengals deal is the best deal. Hendrickson, Cam Taylor-Britt, Logan Wilson would really help the 49ers. But I'll say this, Jermaine Johnson with the Jets, and not just Jermaine Johnson, but Michael Clemens. Nobody talks about Michael Clemens. Michael Clemens is 6'4", 270, and in a lot of ways is an ideal body type for this scheme. I didn't get a chance to ask Robert Saleh specifically this week about Clemens, but Clemens is a talent. I mean, a major talent. So, I mean, if you were going to try to look for multiple pieces, if I could get Jermaine Johnson and Michael Clemens from the Jets and not give away, too high of a pick or too much, too high of, a package of picks, but, I think that makes sense because you really do need volume up front. I mean, guys, let's be honest. The Niners have a bunch of good young DBs, but those good young DBs, if without a pass rush, are naked and may get picked on and may lose their confidence. So if the 49ers want their young defensive backs to develop properly, I think it's almost imperative that they get some help here.
Krug, you know what time it is, man. It's time for a player to bank on, sponsored by Casino Matrix. Just drop in for gaming, dining, sports. Please gamble responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER and by Pacific Service Credit Union. Earn a $400 cash bonus For opening an account and setting up direct deposit of $500 or more, sign up at pacificservice.org/my400. Who's your Niner to bank on today, Krug?
Well, it's kind of tough because you just never know. But I'm gonna say this week, I'm gonna go with Kendrick Bourne.
Okay.
It's time for Kendrick Bourne. JJ's beat up. There's no Ricky Pearsall. Demarcus Robinson's been disappointing. Kendrick Bourne and Mac Jones have a vibe. I think Kendrick Bourne has another bust out big time performance.
They're due. They need the pass game to pick up today. They need to use that to open up some of the run game as well. Kendrick Bourne is Krug's player to bank on. Krug, enjoy the game, man. We'll talk to you afterwards.
Sounds good.
All right, good stuff. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. The Niners and the New York Giants coming your way. 10 a.m. kickoff right here on The Sports Leader. JD, how you feeling about this one now as we're about an hour and 45 from kickoff?
Yeah, I had a real good feeling 2 weeks ago. I did not have as good a feeling about the game last week. I thought that had some trouble. I like where the Niners are at coming into this one with the younger quarterback and the ability to potentially confuse him, although he can make plays. And I think the Niners will be able to run the ball, even if maybe they have to throw it first to set up the run. And so I like the Niners kind of knowing that this is a game that they need to get if they want to get to that goal of 10 wins, which gets them into the playoffs and maybe have a shot to be better than that. So I'm feeling good about this one. I've
got a good feeling, too. This, to me, feels better than I felt about the Falcons game even. And I know that game was at home. But I felt like a lot of people were going, oh, the Falcons, watch out. Here come the Falcons beating the Buffalo Bills. And I was like, I'm not really – they had more weapons than this Giants team does, at least offensively. The Giants team better on the D-line, and they can get sacks, but they've not done a great job of stifling offenses.
No, and you got to protect. I mean, that is going to be the big thing, especially with Mac Jones starting. So I do think they're going to look to, maybe some shorter passes, get out and throw it quickly, to help avoid the rush, and then also to be able to come back to the run. I think that's something that they can look to do. But yeah, I think it's also where is the opposition in their season, and I think if you're playing the Giants 3 weeks ago or a month ago, this would be an incredibly dangerous game considering where the 49ers are at. And
Sure.
I still think there's no game you can just bank on as going to be a win, with the exception, as we've talked about, maybe of that Tennessee game coming up in the middle of December at Levi's. But I do think the Giants are in a much more difficult spot now, losing Scadaboo, losing that lead in Denver, then getting drubbed by Philadelphia in their last game. So I feel like the Niners are getting the Giants team from the beginning of the year, even though Jackson Dart's the quarterback, and not really getting that Giants team that beat the Chargers and beat the Eagles and had the big lead in Denver before the Broncos ultimately came back and won it.
Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. We'll take a quick break. We'll get you a little bit more on the expectations for the 49ers in this one, and then we'll go up to the broadcast booth, check in with our guy Jack Smith, who will be on the call today alongside Tim Ryan. It's the Niners and the Giants kickoff at 10 a.m. only here on The Sports Leader.
Robert's really excited. We have there's edge guys, and one of the roles we have is a big end, and that essentially means a guy who in base downs can play outside, and then he can slide down and rush over guards. Basically means he has some versatility to his game, and we really like that. We've done well with that in the past, and it's a cool opportunity to add a very talented, versatile player that we've had our eye on for a while.
49ers general manager and president of football John Lynch talking about the acquisition of Keion White. I expect him, and we played the Kyle Shanahan sound for you, or the interview that we did with him on Thursday, Derek Papa and I. And Kyle said, I said sort of facetiously, but he was being real. I said, is D-end or pass rusher, like where does it rank on the list of positions that you can acquire in a week and then just kind of plug and play? And he said, it's probably right behind punter, kicker, and long snapper, that you don't have to have a whole lot of scheme there. Get in there and get after the quarterback. I expect that's what we'll see today from Keion White, JD.
Yeah, get in there and pin your ears back and get after the quarterback. I'm interested to see also just how much the game plan defensively is trying to keep Jackson Dart in the pocket as much as you want to get after him and pressure him. And I think really confuse him maybe more than pressure him is the deal for him. And he is one of those quarterbacks, because of what Krueger just mentioned and his willingness to get out of the pocket and try to make plays and maybe try to go quickly to get out of the pocket. I think you need to make sure, and we'll see if the Niners have a spy on him or not, but you have to make sure you keep him in the pocket, then confuse him, and I think that's where you can lead to some mistakes or taking advantage of his inability to maybe be accurate in those circumstances.
Well, it's interesting, too. The Niners, in terms of their offense, have had one game this year where the run game has gotten going, and that was 2 weeks ago against Atlanta. The Giants are coming off a game here, despite how good that front four is that we were talking about in that pass rush. They're coming off a game where they gave up 276 yards on 33 carries on the ground last week, as well as 4 passing touchdowns by Jalen Hurts. I mean, we know the Eagles are one of, if not the best team in the NFC, certainly the best in the NFC East, but the Giants had gotten them 2 weeks prior to that loss last week. How crucial is it today for the Niners to run the ball effectively, and do you expect them to run the ball effectively against a defense that gave up over 270 on the ground?
I do. How they get to it, to me, is the big question, as we were kind of talking about in the last segment. I think this is one of those games, and so often we say, get the ball to CMC, run a lot of stuff for CMC. I think the Niners wanted to do that last week, but the Texans took him out. I'm fascinated at do the Niners look to throw it early more than you would think, considering the struggles the Giants had against the run last week, in an attempt to come back to and be able to run it later in the game. Basically, proving that you can hold up against the Giants' pass rush as the best part of their team, and try to use that at first to get the passing game going. And then as the game goes along, you come back to really hit them with the run game to basically take control and put the game away. I think that's the part that remains to be seen for me coming into this one. But I do think the Niners are going to be able to run it, and I do think if they can protect Mac Jones early in the game, they're going to be able to throw it at a greater level than we saw certainly against the Texans.
Now, Krug said Kendrick Bourne was his player to bank on. We didn't list players. We can do that here. Tim just came in, our producer here for Niners pre- and post-game, just popped in and said, dude, are you aware that the Niners this year have one receiving touchdown by a wide receiver? And it's Jawan Jennings week 2 against New Orleans, dude.
Yeah, it's all tight ends and running backs, right? I mean,
it's basically what it's been, yeah.
Tonjes has been taking all of them, for including the one from
snatched that one from Kittle last week, right? I snatched it out of the air. Who's your player to bank on in this one, JD? I mean, it's easy to go Christian McCaffrey.
I'm not going to do that.
That's a little chalk. That's low hanging fruit. I'm not going to give you that one, JD. We got to press a little deeper here on 49er pregame. So, who's your player to bank on this week?
Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Mac Jones is the guy this week. I think this is going to be one of the better Mac Jones games, again, assuming the 49ers can protect him, which I think they'll do well enough. Also interesting, I saw Cam Inman on X. He said, and this is contrary to what our guy Matt Maiocco said, so we'll see when the inactives, and he says he thinks Spencer Burford could be in at left guard today.
As a starter over Connor Colby?
As a starter over Connor Colby. So we'll see. I thought, Tim Ryan, when he was on the Football Hour with Pop and Silver on Friday, he sort of hinted at the fact that not that maybe it was coming, but that he likes Spencer Burford as a guard more than he likes him as a swing tackle. But something potentially up there. in the difference in reporting between two guys that are around the team regularly, between our guy Maiocco and another one of our guys in Cam Inman.
Interesting, though, that they would potentially start him over Connor Colby. Now, it's funny you mentioned when we were talking player to bank on. I was almost going to go with a unit. I was going to say this game to me relies on or is on the shoulders of the offensive line. I know the D line is going to have to get after it, and we'll see what Keon White can do. We'll see if Cleve Farrell does anything today, or if you can manufacture a pass rush. Maybe Sam O gets out there, because they just ran out of personnel last week. But despite running out of personnel, they did nothing to get any push to protect the quarterback. And coming off of what I thought was their best game as a unit all season against Atlanta, their worst game in its entirety from start to finish last week.
And how do you what's one way you protect the quarterback? You get the ball out quick in the passing game. So I think that's going to be part of the game plan for this one for the Niners, and then come back to the run and look to kind of put the Giants away in that manner.
That's what's on deck, by the way, sponsored by TimberTech Decking and Railing, #1 in premium decking. Order free samples at TimberTech.com. We'll take a quick break. When we come on back, we can take a look at what's going on around the rest of the NFL today in terms of games of note or games on the schedule we should be paying attention to. And then we'll go up to the broadcast booth, check in with our guy Jack Smith, who will be on the call today with Tim Ryan from MetLife Stadium for the Niners and the Giants. And when we come on back, we'll get you the actives and inactives for this game that should be out here in just about a minute. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson, we're about 90 minutes from kickoff for the Niners and the New York Giants. Week 9 of the NFL, and it's only here on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. It's week 9. The Niners and the New York Giants coming your way. We'll hand it over to our broadcast team, Jack Smith and Tim Ryan, who will take you up to and through kickoff in about a half an hour here to get you ready for the Niners and the New York Giants. JD, do we have the actives and inactives at this point? They're out, are they not?
Yeah, D. Winters, Brock Purdy is out, by the way. D. Winters active, Brock Purdy out for the 49ers, so he will not be the backup quarterback according to the inactive list.
Interesting.
Which has just come out after being listed as questionable in this one. So, yeah, you look at Spencer Burford was activated yesterday. We talked about that. Yetur Gross-Matos obviously put on IR. So he's out there, but it's Brock, it's Ricky Pearsall, it's Jake Brendel, Bryce Huff, Jordan James, Marquise Siegel, and C.J. West. Those are the inactives for the 49ers in this one.
There you go. As the Niners get ready to take on another NFC opponent. A lot of road games early on. Do you think, JD, that any body clock fatigue last week, did that play into any of the game? Back-to-back weeks here. They were in Central Time Zone, now they're going East for another game.
It may have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it may have last week, but again, you get the extra hour. So this is a 1 o'clock Eastern game that'll feel like a 2 o'clock Eastern game. So maybe it's a 10 a.m. game that feels like an 11 a.m. game. I don't know. But they got here on Friday, as Kyle said, and try to get acclimated to it. Zero excuses, though, in terms of slow start that we saw in Houston versus trying to get off to a faster start against this Giants team. I think that's an important key. Set the tone that you're in the game early. And use that to maybe continue the downward spiral that the Giants have been on since the fourth quarter of that game in Denver a couple of weeks ago.
I'll tell you what, the extra hour of sleep, I felt it this morning. Felt good.
Yeah, it's no question. It's definitely noticeable, and I'm pro daylight savings time.
Oh, you are pro. You're pro changing the clock. So you like this?
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I like it. 5 o'clock. I like it dark around the holidays and all that. And I like the super long days in the summer as well when you push 9 p.m. So I think it works on both ends. A traditionalist in that sense. I wanted to ask you this, Copes. I know we're up against it. Giants, 49ers, and there is going to be a little bit of an older school look to the field at MetLife Stadium today in terms of the Giants logo. It's that early 90s style Giants logo, and the Giants are going to be wearing the early 90s style uniform.
Are they wearing the Giants, the one that says Giants on the helmet?
Yes.
Ooh, okay. That's the Giants of my childhood.
So,
right.
And that's where I was going with it, because the Giants, I think in this generation, aren't really spoken of as big-time rivals with the 49ers, and they had the NFC Championship game in the Harbaugh era in 2011. The Giants went on to win that Super Bowl. They had the early 2000s playoff game where the Giants or the 49ers
Trey Junket
come back.
Yeah,
at Candlestick. But when I go back to my childhood, I think 49ers and the Giants were right up there, with the Cowboys and the Packers, really before even the Cowboys and the Packers rivalry. It was the Giants rivalry when I was a kid, truly growing up. Where are the Giants for you in terms of 49er rivalries?
So funny you mentioned this. The New York Giants, I think, are my least favorite football team. I got no love for the New York football Giants. In fact, I actively root against them regularly. It's funny for me, like, as a kid who grew up in the 90s, like, I guess the Cowboys won their last Super Bowl when I was in kindergarten, or 95, right? I was in first grade, something like that. The Niners win it in 94. It's the 94 season, 95 season for the Cowboys. I don't remember them ever being rivals with the Niners. They were of no significance to me growing up. They were just the Cowboys of old. And I was like, I didn't really get this rivalry. To me, that was like an 80s rivalry. I hated Brett Favre and the Green Bay Packers. I did not like the New York football Giants. I knew that was a rivalry going into that wild card game, Trey Junket and all that, like you were talking about there, because I was taught by my mom and my dad that that's a team that the Niners don't like. That NFC Championship that they lost, where then the Giants go on to the Super Bowl. I think
going for the three-peat. They were going for a three-peat.
Yeah, that was frustrating, man. That was horrifying in terms of how that game went down. Non-reviewable plays, the Kyle Williams play, the Ahmad Bradshaw fumble that was not reviewable because of a penalty that was called there. No, I've got them up there near the top in terms of teams that I am not a fan of. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would feel that way, and this is the 100th year of the New York Giants as well, so that's being celebrated. This is being deemed a legacy game for the Giants with the old school uniforms. And again, it's going to be an older school look in terms of the field. It'll take you back to the early 90s, and you'll think maybe Bill Parcells is over on the sideline instead of Dayball.
Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. Yeah, instead of Brian Dibble, who's coaching to save his job, save his football life here as a head coach in New York, and maybe Jackson Dart is the guy to do it. We'll take a quick break. When we come on back, we'll get you ready for the 49ers, the player spotlight for Week 9. We'll also go up to the broadcast booth and check in with Jack Smith, who will be on the call today with Tim Ryan for the Niners and the hated Big Blue New York Giants. Adam Copeland, JD with you. Kickoff 10 a.m. only here on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland back with your 49er player spotlight in a Week 9. The Niners and the Giants coming your way with a 10 a.m. kickoff right here on the Sports Leader. Time now for your 49er player spotlight here. And we're going to go with 49er tight end George Kittle, who played Week 1 against Seattle, caught a touchdown before leaving the game with a hamstring injury that landed him on injured reserve. Missed about 5 games after the 4 weeks on IR before he returned for the Atlanta game, where the 49ers put up their best rushing performance of the season. Some would say it was simply putting George Kittle back into the run scheme that helped open things up. That also, by the way, became his first game of his career without a reception in which he had played in the game. That all changed last week, though, as he became our 49er player of the week, catching the lone touchdown of the game for the 49ers last week. 4 catches on 43 yards on 4 catches, 10.8 a catch, a long of 17, 5 targets, and he did catch that lone touchdown. He was then the 49er player of the week on the Murph and Marcus morning show here on the Sports Leader. He talked earlier this week on Wednesday after the loss about the team playing with their backs against the wall.
McCaffrey, after the game, actually had a great quote. He said, the rest of the season, just play like your backs are against the wall, because that's when you have the most sense of urgency. That's when you're the most desperate. And don't feel like we have any type of lead in anything. Don't feel comfortable in anything. Just play like your backs are against the wall the rest of the season, and that's going to be the best thing for all of us. And, I totally agree with them. The hungry dog, the desperate dog, plays the fastest, the hardest, and wants to win the most. So I think hopefully that'll be our overall team mindset moving forward, and get a bunch of hungry dogs out there on offense, and hopefully just start throwing up a bunch of points.
Yeah, hungry is definitely the way the Niners have to play this week, specifically on the offensive line and specifically in the run game. You want to get after it today and try to put up some yards early, open things up. You got to pick up first downs and try to put together some sustained drives, something they could not do early in the game last week against Houston. George Kittle, a touchdown in his first touchdown, his first 4 catches since returning from IR for the 49ers in the loss last week. Let's see how big he is for them in the run game and in the red zone today against the New York Giants. That's why George Kittle is this week, Week 9's 49er Player Spotlight. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. The Niners and the New York Giants kicking off at 10 a.m. local time here in San Francisco. Let's go up to the broadcast booth in New York with our guy Jack Smith, who will be on the call today for the first time alongside Tim Ryan. Jack, how you doing, brother? Welcome to the show, man.
Good, Copes. How are you? How's the weather out in the Bay Area?
It's
you
actually,
want to bring a little warmth to us?
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. I mean, it's honestly, Daly City, I'm always shocked when you see sun peeking out anyway, but not a cloud in the sky right now. Are we looking at a crisp, cool day in New York today, Jack?
Yeah, my phone says 56 degrees, but my fingers feel like it's maybe a little bit colder.
Okay,
yeah, right. It's 56, but it feels like 48, I believe, with the crisp fall air.
Yeah.
Of November starting to peek through here.
I gotta tell you guys, I always feel like the feels like is a crock. I'm always like, if it feels that cold, then it's just that cold, all right?
Hey, let me tell you, Copes, it's not a crock. Jack, it's not.
I'm saying go with that number. I'm saying go with the feels like number. That's the right number.
Yeah,
I love it.
Whatever it feels like is the way it is. So how's this game? What does this game feel like today, Jack? I mean, the Niners coming off a game where they could not run the ball, the fewest yards ever for Christian McCaffrey as a 49er, 8 carries, 25 yards on the ground, following a performance against Atlanta where he'd gone for 200 total scrimmage yards. What are we looking at today?
Yeah, I think it feels like a potential get-right game for the run game, and the Niners just need more opportunities, I think, to do that. They only ran the ball 10 times last week in Houston. That's tied for the fewest rush attempts ever in a game in 49ers history. So it's kind of unprecedented, the fact they only ran the ball 10 times, and 2 of those were Mac Jones scrambles. So you only get the ball in McCaffrey's hands on the ground 8 times last week because of the low time of possession. it's a get-right week in any week for the run game after that happens, and then they get a Giants run defense that gave up 277 on the ground to the Eagles last week. That's the most that any team has given up in a game in the NFL this season. So the Niners would be looking to kind of get right against anybody, and you wonder, did they find the perfect opponent this week to do that? Of course, New York's going to try and correct from last week, so it's not going to be easy to run for 275 yards, but I think that's what the Niners are going to try and do.
Yeah, and Jack, you look at the Giants. I mean, we were talking about it earlier. If you're playing this team maybe a month ago, you'd feel a little bit differently than maybe playing this team today with Scadaboo now out for the season, the gruesome injury last week. But they still have Jackson Dart, who has brought a lot of life to the franchise, along with Cam Scadaboo. How do you see the Niners trying to contain Jackson Dart today?
I think it's really important just to not give up first downs on first and second and then make his life difficult on third down. They were unable to do that last week against C.J. Stroud. He was 11 of 11 on third and fourth down, so you have to hem him in early, not let him scramble. That's one thing Philly did really well last week. Only 2 scrambles allowed, and both were in the first half. But I think you guys are right about the fact that if the Niners got this Giants group early in the season, Cam Scadaboo went out last week. You also got to remember Malik Neighbors went out in week 4. So this is a good time to be getting the Giants, and there's a lot on Jackson Dart's shoulders. So we'll see how the rookie is able to handle this, playing without Neighbors, playing without Scadaboo now, and the defense as well. But I think he realizes maybe he has to outscore a defense that has struggled.
Keon White acquired this week from New England to sort of add some pass rush. How big of a deal is manufacturing that pass rush in this game? Non-existent last week, and you got no pass rush. You don't really have anything on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, it's huge. They only have 9 sacks this season as a team. 4 of those are Nick Bosa, and 2 of them are Bryce Huff. Nobody else has more than 1, so they're looking for a standout guy. And, Robert Saleh can do all he can to try and manufacture the pass rush, but eventually you need a guy to win, and the Niners hope that Keon White can be that. Here's one thing to look out for. Philly went into the matchup last week against New York not having more than 2 sacks in any game, and they had 5. So this is a Giants offensive line, especially without its starting right tackle, Jermaine Illuminor, that the Niners might be able to take advantage of on the defensive front.
Jack Smith, the voice you hear, he'll be on the call. We'll hand it over to Jack and Tim Ryan in about 10 minutes here, and he'll be on the call. He'll take you up to and through kickoff here, 10 a.m. on the Sports Leader. Jack, have a great call, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come on back, our final thoughts on this one. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. It's Week 9. The Niners and the Giants kicking off in just over an hour, only here on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you, getting ready to hand it over to Jack Smith and to Tim Ryan, who will take you up to and through kickoff for the 49ers and the New York Giants Week 9. The Niners at 5-3, 3-2 on the road, by the way. Already their 6th road game in their first 9 games of the season. The Giants at 2-6, only their 4th home game in their first 9 games. JD, you asked me earlier about if I had any hatred or animosity for the New York Giants. I didn't ask you about your childhood run-ins with Big Blue. Anything on your end?
Yeah, well, there's one thing that sticks out to this day, and I would have been, I guess I would have had just turned 10. I was 9 or 10, but when the 49ers were going for the three-peat, that 1990 NFC Championship game, I was at my great-grandmother's birthday party, and everybody was kind of watching the game, and this was really about my 3rd year of really watching and understanding football, and the Niners. So I'd never seen the Niners fail. Basically, I had seen him win a couple of Super Bowls, and I'm all puffed out as a 9-year-old, thinking that my team's never going to lose again, right? And so the Niners, Roger Craig fumbles, and it was an ugly game, and it ended up 15-13. Roger Craig fumbles, Niners are trying to run out the clock. Joe Montana, if you remember, got blasted by Leonard
Marshall
in that game, just got blasted. In an injury that basically kept him out of the next season. And so you look at all of that, and the Niners end up losing the game. I threw a remote control at my great-grandmother's house.
Oh, no.
When the Niners lost on the field goal at the end. And it was the first time as a kid where I was told, maybe you're taking sports a little too seriously, Johnny. Johnny, maybe you're taking sports a little too seriously. There was an old great uncle that you're taking sports a little too seriously there, kid. I'm like, yeah, whatever you say, Unc.
And look at you now. Look at you now, huh?
I know. Look at me now.
Look at you now, man. Taking it seriously and getting ready
here
for the Niners.
I'll
and the
never
Giants.
forget that. My mom still brings that story up to this day. And has throughout the years.
Dude, I've thrown my fair share. Dude, I think I threw keys. I think I threw my mom's keys across the house when JT Snow crashed into Pudge Rodriguez in 2003, and he came up still holding the ball. And I believe my dad's line, much like your uncle, was, if this is how you're going to act, I might not let you watch baseball anymore. Now what, Pops, huh? Now what's going on? Now where are we? Adam Copeland, John Dickinson with you. Final thoughts here. The keys to the game sponsored by your Bay Area Chevy dealers. Visit Bay Area Chevrolet Dealers. JD, final thoughts and keys to the game here as we got about a minute and a half before we jump out.
Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. Might have to throw it in an attempt to run it, but I think that's where the 49ers have an advantage, and keep Jackson Dart in the pocket and confuse him, which will lead to turnovers.
I think that's first and foremost. Run the ball effectively. I'm going to go with protect the quarterback. I said this earlier. I think they're coming off their worst game as an offensive line unit this season following their best game of the season against Atlanta, where they really were able to maul that team. They're going to have to run the ball effectively early in this one and open things up. Spencer Burford in there at left guard starting today for Connor Colby, so that's of intrigue here. Also, Keon White, the new guy. Get out there. Put some numbers on the stat sheet, man. Fill it up. That's what the Niners need. We'll see if they can get after the quarterback today and protect the quarterback in their own right. We'll sign off here. I'll be back with you at halftime for the halftime report, and JD and I will be back with you getting your thoughts on the Niners and the Giants on the post-game show, getting all your calls, thoughts, and analysis after the Niners and the Giants play Week 9. Kickoff in just over an hour here. We're going to hand it over to the broadcast team, Jack Smith and Tim Ryan, who will take you up to and through kickoff for the Niners and the New York Giants. The Niners, for the first time entering play this year, not in first place in the NFC West after that loss last week when the rest of the West was idle. Dropped them a half game behind the Rams, the Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. The Cardinals still sitting behind the 49ers. Thanks to our guests, Matt Maiocco and to Larry Krueger. The Niners and the Giants coming up next, only here on The Sports Leader.